You're listening to How to 20-something, the best podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to focus on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life. I'm your host, Jess Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Jess Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20-something. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20-something, where today I'm going to shed some light on a more somber side of becoming an adult and moving through your 20s, and it's that you lose a lot more than you expect. It's depressing, but beautiful at the exact same time, because with each new experience, transition, and moments of growth, you're improving your life, you're moving forward, but you're also saying goodbye to past versions of you, dreams that didn't come true, and even people. And that can feel really confusing and bring about feelings of grief alongside happiness. It's something no one warned you about that comes with growing up. I know I can recognize this for myself when I talk about who I was in high school and college, and people who know me today are dumbfounded by how different I sounded just 10 years ago, where I was a varsity and competitive cheerleader in high school. I was a sorority girl in college. I cared a lot about status and appearance, and by the end of my junior year of college, I started to make my first shift in who I was becoming, a person I can more recognize now. I changed again when I realized what my true calling was, my passion for fitness and for coaching other 20-somethings and leaving the stability of the corporate world behind. And the thing is, with each of these transitions that I can reflect back on, I know that for one, I don't even recognize that past self in me anymore. I'm so much different and so much better than who I used to be, because let me tell you, I was selfish and self-absorbed, and I can confidently say I'm neither of those things now. And the second part is that I've lost people who were once in my inner circle as I shedded different pieces of me and molded into the version I am today. Or I know that people have shed me as they've changed, or even as I've changed, and we grow apart as a result. So you grieve two things at once in an ongoing cycle as you grow up. You grieve your old self, and you grieve the people who were once standing right beside you during that particular phase of your life. But at the same time, your grief represents your growth, all that you've overcome and persevered through. And sure, there are definitely expected losses that come with growing up, like moving out of your childhood home, talking less and less to childhood friends as you get caught up in your new adult life, changing your lifestyle that now fits a full-time job, losing familial traditions, and beginning your own. Those are all natural. I feel like those are all expected losses that will still feel sad when they happen. We think they're supposed to be easy transitions because they are accounted for, but it's still a representation of out with the old and in with the new. Especially when your mom cleans out your childhood bedroom and turns it into her new gym. My mom didn't do that, but she did turn it into more of a guest room. I mean, she fully rented out my sister's room as an Airbnb before the pandemic happened, but that's besides the point. Overall, you do feel like you lose a lot in your 20s, and you don't expect it or account for it as these positive changes are also happening at the same time. And that's what this episode is going to be about. It's all of the hidden ways we lose things throughout this decade, some of the more obvious ones, and why it's okay to have mixed feelings about all of it. For starters, something you probably don't think about is a loss of direction, where you go your whole life being told exactly what to do and where to be and what's next for you, and then you graduate. And it's like you enter this black hole. And now every decision is up to you. The life you want, the path you're on or want to be on is in your hands for the first time ever. And you quickly realize that you have absolutely no idea what's going on. I know for me, when I first started working full-time, I had this realization of this is it. This is the next 40 years of my life. There's no way. I can't accept that. But I also didn't know what else to do. I think there are so many options with what you can be doing, or maybe what you think you should be doing in your 20s, that your mind goes completely blank, and you can't even think of a singular other option other than what you're currently doing, so you stay put. I thought you just have to suck it up and live the same day over and over again, and that's just what adult life is like. And it wasn't until I lost that job at the start of the pandemic in 2020 did I start to explore what else might be possible for me. Which goes right on topic for this episode, and I've definitely mentioned this several times throughout different topics, but you're going to lose your job in your 20s. It's inevitable with this current market, which is so shitty, but it's the shitty reality, and I like to keep it real with you guys. It is going to feel really overwhelming and scary when it happens because now you've lost your income and your reason for getting out of bed and out the door every day. It is so dangerous to your mental health to lose your job, and it's usually entirely out of your control. But you are at the bottom of the food chain and therefore disposable in the eyes of your employers. Once you reach your later 20s, things definitely level out a bit, but I would say you're never fully safe in your career path so long as you're working under someone else. I'm not encouraging you to go do your own thing. I'm just giving you a perspective that you need to take, a pill that you need to swallow. It's why you constantly need to be networking and making new connections so that you have options, just in case the worst case scenario happens. But your early to mid-20s comes with this risk of losing your job, and it's at a time when you aren't even being paid enough to accrue savings to carry you through the scary times of unemployment. So you grieve this changing lifestyle. You grieve it from student to full-time employee. You grieve it from full-time employee to possibly unemployed, or even some variation of that cycle. Maybe you go back to school in your 20s. It's your day-to-day life, your goals, your income, all of that changes with graduating college and entering the workforce and pausing the working life or going back to school. And there is a sense of grief that comes with moving into the next chapter, whatever that next chapter is for you. It's shedding the identity of being a student and entering the corporate world with all the other adults and why you exist in this world with the rest of everyone. It's shedding the identity of being a full-time employee to being unemployed, or shedding the identity of being unemployed to going back to school, or full-time employee to full-time student again. Another loss, something I've also mentioned time and time again, are friendship losses. It's learning the lesson that people come into your life for a reason, season, or a lifetime the hard way. And some friendships you're going to think are your forever friends, but runs its cycle after a year or so. It doesn't mean anything is wrong with you or with them for that matter. It's just part of growing up. I was talking with a client about the reality of adult friendships recently and broke it down for her how quickly you're going to cycle through some friendships. Again, breaking it down to what she's previously experienced throughout a childhood, where you're surrounded by roughly the same kids for 6 years in elementary school, 3 years in middle school, 4 years in high school, and 4 years in college. Obviously, this is a generalization because people move, or if you're like me, you're at the same school from 7th to 12th grade. But you catch my drift. You're surrounded by the same people for expected chunks of time, and that's not the case in adulthood. I told this client that you could make a friend who lives next door this week, but accepts a job and moves across the country next week. And it's hard to keep up with people you don't see regularly. It's hard that my best friend lives out in California and we have to put in extra effort to call one another because we know we won't see each other for a long time. It's hard meeting a friend, getting close with them, and then having them move away. Or maybe they get into a relationship and prioritize their partner over their friendships. Or maybe they're progressing their relationship to marriage and building a family. We're all moving at different paces, and that alone can cause these friendships to drift apart. It's the natural cycle of life. Not every friendship loss is going to come from some massive falling out, but rather from life just happening. Even your childhood friends are going to be people you speak to less and less. And it's even weirder if you have some friends who never left your hometown and you did. Because there's a different level of growth that happens when you do move away. And that can create a disconnect between you and the people you used to hang out with all the time. I had a different client recently go back to his hometown for a bachelor trip, and he had a really difficult time seeing his friends essentially frozen in time. while he has continued to move forward, progress, and get better and better. And it kind of smacks this level of grief in your face because you are grieving who you used to be and the people you used to be with. And now it's different. And different isn't necessarily bad, but it comes with a sense of loss, and it's okay to lean into that loss. You grow apart as you move on in your life. Maybe even vice versa if you're the one that hasn't moved away from your hometown and your friend who did comes back to visit. It's going to feel different from what it once was. Now, I feel like career losses and friendship losses are the more expected grievances of this decade. So let's shift into some of the more sneaky ones, like the loss of who you thought you'd be by now or where you thought you'd be. When your original 5-year plan didn't make it out of year 1 before everything was completely derailed. Or when you had this vision of what your 20s are supposed to be like. When you were supposed to begin working, find your soulmate, get a promotion, travel the world, get a dog or a house, have a family. It's possible you had that entire vision for this decade. That by the time you're 30, you'll be at some place in your life. And as you move through your 20s and get closer and closer to your 30s, you're going to grieve the version of you that you thought was going to exist by now, but is nowhere to be found. I can tell you right now that at the start of my 20s, I never in a million years would have guessed that I would be owning my own business at any point in my life, let alone in my 20s, or giving talks to hundreds of people, or winning awards like Charlotte's 30 Under 30, or having my own podcast. I really thought I'd live the most traditional life because that's what I saw everyone before me do. Go to school, get a job, find a partner, get married, etc., etc. I did go to school. I struggled to get a job, but I got one. And then I got a different one. And then I left my entire degree behind for coaching, podcasting, public speaking, and personal training. The only thing I had right about my 20s was to live in North Carolina at some point. But when you're wrong about what you originally had in mind, you're going to feel defeated for a little bit. Even if what's in lieu of your vision is better, there's still a piece of you that mourns the other timeline. Another sneaky moment of grief that comes up in this decade is the loss of time. You realize for the first time that you're getting older, like really getting older, doing adulting shit and being responsible. And because you're getting older and growing up, so are your parents and your grandparents. You're watching them age as you step into your truest self. I'm actually planning out this episode on my flight to Boston, not currently recording this on my flight, but when I was planning it on my flight. And it was to go visit my grandparents because they're getting older and I don't know how much time I have left with them. Or anytime my mom mentions something about my childhood and I tell her that happened 20 years ago, it's a reminder to both of us that we're getting older. As a kid, you think people in their 60s are old. And then your parents reach their 60s and your entire perspective changes. It's all bittersweet. It's part of life, but it's newer realizations that specifically come with this decade that you're in. And so much of adulthood is filled with these bittersweet realizations, and recognizing what you're losing and what you're gaining is also learning how to be both proud of how far you've come and still let yourself miss the parts of you you're leaving behind. I think grief is good. It sucks. It sucks when it's people grief, whether from actual death or growing apart or moving away. And what I want to say is that it's okay to admit that it sucks. Acknowledge that you missed that friend, that chapter in your life, that version of you, while also acknowledging that just because it's gone doesn't mean something about you or your life needs to be fixed or replaced. It means that you're shedding an older layer of you and making room for something new to appear. A new thought process, new people, new career opportunities, a new life. So please know that if you're experiencing any kinds of losses, that it's normal to feel sad about it, even when you're in the midst of all these positive things happening. I'm here to help you better understand these conflicting feelings you're experiencing or going to experience as you continue to progress in your life. It's messy, but it's necessary, and it's good to experience these feelings of grief. It means you're human. It means you're present. And on that note, this does conclude another episode of How to 20-something. So if you liked what you heard, if you better understand your mixed feelings, or know someone who's experiencing some form of loss in their 20s, then please share this episode. I know I didn't highlight it into more of the losing people to death side of this episode, because that loss happens, and it's going to happen at different periods of your life. But there's other losses that are so specific to your 20s that you're not thinking about, or you're coming across and you aren't realizing like this is a feeling of grief that you are experiencing. And that's what I wanted to emphasize. So if you know someone grieving an actual person, maybe don't send this episode to them. But if you know someone that is going through changes, that's who this episode is for. Because with change comes leaving things behind as you step into something new. So send it to that friend. Post it to your story on Instagram. Tag me at coach.justdiamond when you do so I see it. But please do something to help me expand my reach to all of the other 20-somethings navigating the most confusing decade of their life. And as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.